Welcome to Enlightened Evolution.
I'm Cay.
And I'm Christina.
We're here to discuss the ebb and flow of our soul's healing and transformation through self-reflection, choosing intentionally, honoring thyself, and following your inner guide.
Thank you for joining this safe space with us. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Enlightened Evolution with Cay and Christina. Last week, we talked about EMDR therapy. This week, we are talking about internal family system therapy, or IFS. Cay, do you have any fun plans today or this week?
Well, tomorrow I am going to EMDR therapy. We just talked about that in last week's episode, so I'm excited about that. I have thrown so much shit at my therapist over the last, she is gonna probably talk to me the same way you have recently. Not gonna lie. But I'm always excited for it. And I know that she probably is very entertained by me. So that's always nice to be.
Someone's source of entertainment.
Yes. Yes. So I'm excited about that tomorrow. I don't really have any plans today. I'm gonna go outside. I know you mentioned, you got some outside plans. And I'm going to do the same thing. There's this park by my house, and it's a sledding hill, and I've been walking up it. Don't ask me why, because it's miserable. But
Do your shins hurt afterwards?
Girl, everything hurts afterwards.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like at work I'll try to do the stairs sometimes because there's 12 floors, and I don't know what's harder, but I've caught myself running up this hill just to get it done and over with quicker, but I always suffer afterwards but it is good for me. So I'm going to go outside and do that. It's Sunday, just going to get some stuff together and get prepared for the week and clean some stuff. I've been in my organization era, so that feels good.
Nice.
And this week I'm thinking about going to Ludington, Michigan. It's over on the west side of the state. It's south of the Sleeping Bear Dunes, but still kind of considered like up north. It's got a cute little town and a couple lighthouses. I'm going to take my son and his girlfriend. So, yeah, I'm really excited about that.
I just love northern Michigan and the coastline.
I know. I just drove up there with my dad and my daughter the other day, and we went to Mackinac City, and I drove. And it was nice because I, obviously didn't take my eyes off the road for too long. But my dad and I were talking about, oh my gosh, in the fall, it's so beautiful. And I just want to drive up there in October just to drive.
Oh, yeah.
There. We have really great fall colors up here in Michigan.
You guys didn't go over to the island, though?
We did not. We got up there kind of late, which is fine. And had a family member that had surgery, and my dad had to go and help him out. So. But we walked to the ferry port, and we stayed right there in downtown Mackinac, and we went to the Dark Sky Park, which is kind of a silly concept. Just find a dark place in the woods and look up, But it was like a collective experience, and he had a little gift shop there, and which I need to go back and get my hoodie because they were closed, and I'm pissed about that. I saw 3 shooting stars and saw the Milky Way, and they had have you ever experienced that, looked up at the stars where there was a guide with a laser pointing up to point at the constellations he's talking about? It's amazing. I don't think
so.
It's the second time
that would be awesome.
that I've seen something like that. It was super cool. And he was funny, and I don't know, it was just really... It was a really cool experience. It was right on Lake Michigan, and it's called Headlands Dark Sky Park. If anybody's interested in it, coming up to Mackinac, it's not even a mile away from little downtown Mackinac City. So, highly recommended.
That sounds awesome. I didn't even know that those existed.
I know, and I start Googling. I'm like, who would have thought? You could just look up at the stars, but it's cool. It was just really, the energy was really good there. Everybody, because the rules are be quiet, no bright lights. You got to have a red light, and no smoking. And there was no well, we did smell some funky stuff. There was some smoking, but I didn't smell any cigarettes, thank God. And
Mm.
um, I there was like kids, there was a lot of little kids like, when are we leaving? Because you just gotta lay there and look at the sky, right? Even Kyla was like, Mom,
Yeah.
we've been here for like an hour. When are we going? I'm like, because you can't have your phone on there. It's rude, you know? You don't.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think it was really good for kids to actually get your face out of a screen and look up at the stars.
Absolutely.
I feel so, it was like, it's that same feeling of, it's like soul cleansing. Like, I just felt engulfed by like the earth, just laying on the grass looking up and just like
Mm.
immersed in like this like universal energy. It's the same to me as just getting inside the ocean and having like the ocean just like wash and cleanse my spirit. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's the same feeling to me.
Mm.
What are you doing today
We
and this week?
are Jordan has a hockey game tonight, so we're doing that. I have no idea what we're doing the rest of the day. I think mostly just chilling around the house. And then the work week starts and we shall see. I plan on deep cleaning my house this week, so that's my plans.
I love that. It makes me feel so good when I do it. I just went like thank God I'm not bipolar because I just work off the natural energy shifts in my cycle now, but
Mhm.
I could appreciate being bipolar. I would really try to harness my manic phase as much as possible. I think I would have a great manic phase if I was bipolar, and I would be so I hope that doesn't offend anybody. I would just be so like I would accomplish so many things. Cuz that's how I
Yeah.
feel. Like I have like this like my burst of energy feels like this manic phase to me that I just because that's what I did last week. I went through every cupboard, got rid of stuff, scrubbed baseboards, deep cleaned. Like it's so soothing to me to purge and cleanse.
Mhm. Same for me. I'm honestly though, I've never had someone clean. I don't think I might have paid my friend one time when she was needing money to clean my apartment, but I've never like paid someone professionally to clean my
Mhm.
house. And I kind of want like kind of want to pay someone to do like a deep clean. I can do it myself, but I also feel like you get blind to things in your own home, so I feel like having a foreign set of eyes come in and be like, "Oh, this is gross." I don't know.
Yeah.
It would be nice. Those are the things that I'm like, treat me to a deep house cleaning."
Yeah. Which you have a beautiful home. Your house is not gross. Let me just say that.
Thank you. There's
You're
just so much pet hair everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Do you have a really good
The way
vacuum?
we have a $3,000 vacuum,
Bitch. You tell me I
a
got
rainbow.
problems. A what?
It's a rainbow vacuum. It's supposed to last 30 years. It better last 30 years because it's hella expensive, but it does work really good. It's really loud to use it. That's one of the things I don't love about it. It also works as an air purifier when you're not vacuuming. Like there's 4 different
Oh,
levels you can set
cool.
it on.
Yeah.
So if you keep it on the low level, it's pretty quiet and it just acts as an air purifier. But yes, it does clean really well, but I only use it once a week now. I probably need to up it to, like, twice a week because of the amount of animals we have in this house.
Oh, yeah. How is tiramisu doing?
She is doing great. She was wanting to be in here. She's very much attached to me.
Hmm.
So, and I've grown attached to her. I find myself, like, missing her when I'm gone at work all day.
Hmm.
I feel like I miss everyone, but I'm like she's always, like, on my chest when I'm home, so I'm always, like, holding her, but I tried to have her in here when we were recording, and she was just climbing out. She loves to walk across the keyboard. She would have recording, so she cannot be in here, but she's doing really good. She's growing, and I was really impressed. The Humane Society called me to follow up and just see how she was acclimating and all that, and I was like, "Oh, that's really nice."
That's
I didn't know they
sweet.
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is sweet. Oh, I'm glad it's working out. Her and Moon Pie are becoming besties or what?
They're best buds. The other 2 cats do not like with her. They don't fuck with her. They are mad at her. So, the I know. The only downfall is so we keep all of our litter boxes in our basement, except for our one cat uses the toilet, but that's a whole nother story. I think she's going to learn how to use the toilet. But the two mean ones, the older ones, they keep like chasing her out of the basement. And I need her to start going down there because I currently have her litter box in my bathroom and I don't want to smell that anymore.
I don't blame you. I remember when my son had Jamal, God rest his soul. He got hit by a
Mm-hmm.
car, but we found him as a kitten. We already had Beyonce. She was the older one, but as he grew into like this dominant male, he would not allow her to use the litter box, and she started peeing in my mudroom, and it was like harassed her. Like if she was ever going to the bathroom, he would like jump on her and surprise her. Like imagine taking a shit and you think you're alone and like somebody jumps on you. You know what I mean? Like, and he did that to her
Yeah.
every day. So I had to get them a separate litter box and it was a whole thing. So yeah, you're gonna have to figure something out about it. Maybe get a squirter bottle and maybe squirt the other two and they treat her that way. Do you do that to punish your cats?
No.
Oh my gosh. my my mom will do that to keep him off the counter, and I guess it's just something I learned. Yeah, yeah, with Jamal especially when he jumped on the counter, I squirt, squirt, sir, get the fuck
Yeah,
down.
cats. I follow Jackson Galaxy for a lot of training advice. Cats don't. They're not like dogs. They don't respond to punishment. You have to give them something else to take their attention. So
Mm-hmm.
we try to like enact a lot of play and things when they get angry, but and then we also we have like some calming drops that we put in their water. They're supposed to make them not fight. I guess
Oh,
maybe we don't use them enough.
yeah,
They don't
maybe.
work, I don't think.
You said they don't respond to punishment, so you're saying don't squirt Beyonce with a squirter bottle when she jumps on my counter.
Mhm.
Okay, it works. She gets down.
I guess they just don't train with it like a dog would,
I don't. You're right, but guess what? She doesn't
because
really
they're
do
going to
it.
continue to do it
Yeah, that's fine.
like when you're not there.
I know she does it when I'm not there. You know, I find cat hair up there. I know
Yeah.
she does it when I'm not there, but she respects me to my face now. You know,
Yeah.
they think that they're smarter than you. They think that we belong to them. You know, I gotta have something on her.
Mhm. Mhm. All right. Well, let's jump into internal family system therapy. Um, K, not to be confused with what was it? Family systems theory. That is another type of therapy. So the key word here would be internal. So this is just within the self, internal family system. The family system therapy you had looked up more looks at like your actual family unit and how all the relationships
Yes,
relate to each other.
and the other one that I found actually looks super beneficial. It was more to do with like I think it was family group sessions and a lot of sibling rivalry, like rival. How do you say the word rivalry? I'm
Yeah.
terrible. I slaughtered it, I think.
I know I'm not going to
Um,
say it any better than you, so I'm not even going
and
to
like
try.
sibling abuse. So if anyone experiences anything like that, family systems therapy slash theory is looks like something that could benefit a lot of people out there if you're looking for a family unit therapist. So,
Yes.
but not what we're discussing today.
Not what we're discussing today. So, internal family system therapy is a psychotherapeutic approach. It was developed by Richard C. Schwartz in the 1980s. So, it's fairly new. And it views the mind made up of distinct subpersonalities or parts. Also, this is referred to as parts therapy, and then a central self. The core idea is that everyone has this internal system of parts, each with their own perspectives, memories, roles, and these parts interact with each other and they influence our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors in our everyday life. So, as I mentioned in our last episode, I had gone to my therapist hoping to do EMDR therapy. And when I explained to her that I didn't have full memories of things that happened to me as a child, but I came to her concerned because I had watched family videos of myself as a young kid and saw how like hypersexualized I was as a kid. And I was like, I know that things happened to me prior to this age, but I have no memory of them. But I see in these family videos of like how it affected me. She's like, I don't think EMDR is going to be right for you in this topic. And so she suggested this internal family systems, and I had never heard of it before. So I had to dive deep in. Like I'm a reader. I love to have more knowledge, and I love that about my therapist. She's like, these are the books you should read. So she gave me some recommendations, and I'll give you all some recommendations today too, of if you want to dive a little bit deeper into it. So these parts. Mhm.
I was just going to ask how long you've been doing this therapy for.
At least 2 years.
Nice. With the same
Maybe
therapist?
a little bit more. Mhm. 'Cause I think I started right when I bought my house here or right before I bought my house here. So about 2.5 years.
And I know that we talked about was that on the last episode or this time around, just how expensive it is.
Mm.
How much you're willing to pay for it.
Right. So my therapist is not covered by my insurance. I pay $175 a visit, so I do not see her weekly and sometimes not even monthly. But I went into it knowing that. So even my first session with her, I was like, "Look, I can't afford this every
Mhm.
week. So what I really need from you are some tools that I can use between sessions. And then when I'm struggling to have a breakthrough, I will come in for a session." And she's like, I completely understand that. So that's why she gave me all these tools. I think I've mentioned before, she will take notes for me. So she has you bring a notebook. She takes notes for you to take home with you.
I love that.
Yeah. No, I've never had a therapist do that before. And that, so now I have these with me because I do struggle with memory. And so sometimes I like to reflect on, okay, what came up in this section so I can remember and reflect on those things. And
I sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I just forgot to mention in that EMDR episode we did, and it would work for this as well. I wonder if my therapist would allow me to record my session. And instead, like the notes would be great, but I can't take notes with my eyes closed. And I don't know if
No.
that's something she'd be willing to do, but it would just be because I feel you on that. Like I have a hard time with memory as well, like past, and I don't know if I suppress it or if it's just me getting older. I don't know what it is, but sometimes my synapses ain't clicking together as quickly as I'd like them
Hmm.
to. So, yeah, it'd be
So
cool to
yeah,
record a
that's
session.
what she did for me.
Nice.
She's like, okay, she actually suggested it. She was like, because she kind of leads you through a guided meditation to get to your parts.
Oh,
And so she's
nice.
like, do you want me to record this for you? She said, give me your phone, I'll record it. And that way, if you need to use it to help get you into this space when you're not here, you can do that. So she's truly amazing. Also, the book I have here, Introduction to Internal Family Systems by Richard C. Schwartz. In this book, he gives like sections of intros into your parts, and it says like you may want to have someone read this to you. So there's exercises in this. Before I read this, oh, I'm still reading it. Before I read this book, I actually listened to his audio book called No Bad Parts, I think is what it's called.
Oh, I like
And in
that.
that, yeah, and that he has audio guided, so where he can guide you through it. Also, he offers full examples of like clients he's had and talking to their parts and how that's looked. So, what I described today might sound funky. I don't know. It might be hard to grasp.
That's how I felt when I was describing EMDR. I'm like, oh my gosh, just hearing myself talk about this, I sound spastic.
No,
But
I thought you did a good job
oh, thank you.
of explaining it.
When I was doing my research on the correct information about this episode, I found some, and I didn't like add it to my notes today or anything, but there was somebody that was talking about their experience of parts therapy, and he put down like the narrative and different conversations between the different parts that I know you're going to explain in a little bit here, but that was super helpful. And when he put that into perspective, it's like, oh, okay. Like this different part of myself is really struggling because this different part of myself wants control right now. And I loved the narrative part of the research I did on this.
Yeah. So I highly suggest maybe listening to some of those to see if maybe you think parts therapy is right for you.
Mhm.
I also got this book, which looks like a children's book. And it probably could be young, like young adults could read this. I love illustrations. So this is called We All Have Parts, and it's by Colleen West. It's an illustrated guide to internal family systems. And it gives like, it breaks stuff down very cartoonish, but I like it. I like how it breaks stuff down. So
Oh, I want that book, I think.
yeah, I think I got it on Amazon. It was probably less than $20. It's really good. It breaks down very simply this type of therapy and how it works and why it works, and it gives you tools as well to use for yourself. It gives you like conversation starters. So that's the part where it kind of becomes odd to people. And Richard Schwartz, he talks about this in his book. He's like, people come into this and they're like, this kind of sounds like schizophrenia or something, like you're
Mm.
talking to these different
It's not
parts of your
though.
brain.
Yeah.
It's not. And like, think of this. Have you ever gone to someone, maybe someone asked you to do something and you're like, well, part of me wants to, but part of me really doesn't.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
every day.
parts. Yeah.
Every
Part of
single
me
day.
wants to do this. I think we've all said that, like, oh, part of me really wants to do this, but another part of me doesn't. It's normal to have these different parts. And it's nice to be able to, I don't want to say single them out, but to identify them.
Mhm.
It You mentioned how EMDR has helped you in forgiveness. Parts therapy has helped me in forgiveness because I can look at people that have harmed me and understand, like, one of the ones, I mean, the biggest one I struggle with is my bio dad. For so long, I saw him as this great person in my life. He taught me a lot of things. We had some really great experiences, and that was always hard for me to process, of like, how could he have done all these good things but then done such horrific things?
Mhm.
And so it's helped me to learn forgiveness for him and understand that he also has parts, and there were parts of him that were very wounded and caused him to do very bad things, but there were also still parts of him that were.
Yeah.
So let's get into the different types of parts. So you have managers. These are the proactive parts of you. They try to keep control. They try to prevent us from experiencing pain. So they're proactive. They're preventing things. This for me would be my anxiety. So it's constantly looking for threats and trying to prevent me from experiencing any pain. Some other managers they suggest in the book are the type A executive. That's also been me. The caretaker who wants to just take care of everyone. Also, the harsh critic, could be that internal critic that's like, oh, you're not doing good enough, trying to prevent you from, maybe losing your job or being seen as not good enough by others. Then you have the firefighters. These are the reactive parts of you. So they react to stressors and pain. They engage in numbing behaviors usually. So some of the examples the book has would be like compulsive eating, compulsive dieting, drug use. For me, it probably would have been my hypersexualization, and the list can go on. I mean, I have many managers, many firefighters for sure. And then you have the exiles. So these are the parts of yourself that carry burdens from past trauma. They're often hidden away. They're often takes some time to get to. And so this could be, a terrified toddler, a hungry baby, a hostile or lonely teen, confused and angry kindergartner, ashamed preteen, neglected infant. So whenever these things happen to you, they typically stay at that age. I just put in general my inner child here. And then you have yourself. So yourself is this part that is really, I see it as your soul connection to spirit. And Richard Schwartz, I always say his name so weird, I don't know why. He describes 8 C's of the self. So you know you're operating from self if you're embodying these traits.
Oh, I've came across these, and I was gonna ask you if this was just the person that was writing this blog about this, or that's cool that it's actually a part of the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, I found it in his book too. So when you're being calm, when you're acting with clarity, when you're being curious, and I know we've kind of mentioned this before, this has been a big one for me. Instead of immediately placing judgment on something, experiencing that curiosity of,
Mhm.
maybe they're operating this way because of X, Y, and Z. So just remaining curious, open minded, acting with compassion, acting with confidence and courage. It's when you tap into your creativity and then also your connectedness. So understanding that we're all connected. And I think that really ties into the compassion part of it too. When you can realize, like, we're all human, we all make mistakes, we all have parts of us that cause us to do bad things and parts of us that cause us to do good things. And he gave this really, and I I didn't notice it till I was doing my research for this. There was one session with my therapist where she was trying to get me in touch with myself. And in his book, he, in the intro to IFS, he gives you this kind of guided meditation to, like, start out on a path. And when you start off, you ask all of your parts. And this is something you do want to do after you've already done some parts therapy and you've identified some of your parts. Ask your parts to kind of stay behind and let you walk out on this trail. And
Ooh, I like that.
yeah, and then there's this inner dialogue because I remember my therapist did this with me, and there was this, like, some of my parts were fearful to let me walk out and leave them behind. So you have this inner dialogue of, you're going to be fine. I'm leaving you in a safe space. I'm just going to step out here and I'll be back. And so you do this dialogue until they're willing to let you step forward. And as you step forward, when thoughts, come into your mind, you release them back to where your parts are. And then the key part is the therapist should ask you, what do you see right now? And if you see yourself walking, then there's still a part with you. So you should see yourself actually from your eyes. So you should see what's in front of you. You shouldn't be seeing a person
Mm.
walking. So that was like a key identifier of whether you're in yourself or you're operating from a part. It's really interesting. And I know it sounds very woo woo,
I know, I'm here
but
for it. I like it.
it is so beneficial. I've absolutely loved doing it. So typically when you're identifying parts, you'll go through a meditation or a dialogue. I've mentioned a million times, my first session with my therapist, and they typically will ask you, what parts are here with you right now. And it's really, like, what's the most dominant feeling you have at that moment? Are you fearful? Are you angry? My first one was anxiety. And so we talked with that part. And so once we have identified kind of what part you're operating from at that time, so they're typically different emotions or things, then you can dive a little bit deeper and your therapist will ask you, well, what does this part of you look like? And so they'll ask you to visualize this part of you. So for me, my anxiety was this 7-year-old girl. I described what her hair looked like, what her dress looked like, and you want to get as much detail as possible so that you can really envision this part of yourself. Once you've got a good idea of what they look like, then you start to develop a relationship with these parts. So you try to sit with them, ask them if they feel comfortable talking with you, and you start to build a bond with them. And then you start to ask them what burden they're carrying. So the big part of IFS therapy is unburdening your parts. You're not going to get rid of these different parts of you because they're always going to be with you. But building a connection with them and unburdening them is huge. So
Mhm.
you would ask your anxiety, what burden have you been carrying and where do you feel it? And so, like, my anxiety felt like this huge block of cement on its shoulders. And, you ask it, where did this come from? When did you start feeling this? So you can pin it back to maybe a certain event that happened where you started feeling this. And then you ask that part of you, would you feel comfortable taking this off your shoulder? Like, one time it wasn't a anvil thing, and you ask that part, would you be okay to just sit it down next to you? And it just gradually goes through to where you get that part of you to trust yourself, that 8C's self, to handle these situations, because that anxiety part of me did not trust myself to keep us safe. And so you build these relationships in your therapy sessions. And this is something, I mean, I definitely would suggest seeing someone that is trained in this to begin with. But this is something, once you get the hang of it, it's something you can do on your own as well. And so you build these relationships with these parts. And then when they pop up later on, going about my day and I feel my anxiety pop up, I can stop, have a conversation with that part and say, hey, first of all, thank you for showing up for me. I know you're here to protect me. I really appreciate you being concerned for our well being. Can you trust me to handle this situation? And can I ask you to just have a seat? And it's it's amazing.
It sounds amazing. I was having a conversation with somebody last night about this therapy, asking if they've ever heard of it before, and I was trying to describe to them what I've learned, but I know that I probably completely slaughtered it because I've never experienced it. And he's like, "Oh, it sounds like the movie Inside Out."
Yes.
And I was like, "Oh, I love that movie." And so I remembered that I wanted to tell you that right now. And I was going to ask you, so
Yeah.
is your anxiety what do you is your anxiety your manager, your firefighter, or your exile? Or is it depending on what you're anxious about, can it be different?
Well, and certain parts can, like, be codependent of each other and things.
Yeah.
My anxiety is definitely a manager. It definitely is
Mhm.
proactive. It's wanting to prevent pain and suffering, but it might connect with other parts of me that are so, like, anxious attachment style.
Mhm.
It might connect with a firefighter, which might be hypersexualization. So in the past, like, you know, trying to think how to describe this, like wanting to always have a partner to validate my self-worth or whatever. Those are kind of those two working together.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're and then typically a lot of parts are all working together. Some parts fight with each other.
Mm.
Like, there's a part of me that I still haven't had a conversation with, and I need to, that
Yeah.
when I set up therapy sessions for myself, that part of me really tries to prevent me from going. And
Do you know
that part of me
why?
is like, what I've gotten so far is that, like, that part of me feels like, oh, you're just going to burden this person with your trauma and you're going to be a burden to them. And which my therapist has shut that down, like, enough. But this part of me believes that me expressing the things that have happened to me is a burden to others and
Yeah.
tries to prevent me from doing so.
No, I feel that when my very first session with my therapist, I'm like, I feel like after you talk to me, you're going to be exhausted. And
Mhm.
I don't want to make you feel that way. And she kind of laughed. I'm like, okay, she does this all day long, but I give it up to therapists, man. Like it
Yeah.
really, like I really do try to not allow others' energy e- to, to just not absorb it, and it exhausts me. But I mean, sometimes it's hard when you're
I think about that all the time, how
Yeah.
therapists like and so many therapists are empaths, and so they just absorb
Mhm.
energy. So they all must have or should have, a process they do to kind of release the energy of the day. I remember one time my therapist, she stopped me. I have this horrible trauma response of laughing when I mention something really traumatic. I do it on here. I do it at work. Like
I've
I do it all
noticed
the
you do
time.
that. Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was doing it in my sessions when I was mentioning horrible things that had happened to me, and she's like, "Why did you just laugh?" And I didn't even realize I was doing it, and I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, it's
And
an
she's like
inappropriate affect, they call it, yeah.
she was like well, she described why I was doing it is I'm trying to make it lighter for her. She's like,
Mm.
you don't have to make this situation lighter for me. What you experienced is heavy, and you don't have to try to make light of it for me. I'm okay to sit here with you and listen to these things. And she's like, and you don't have to do that for anyone else either. And I still do it, like I've done it my whole life.
Yeah.
So but I'm noticing it more. I notice when I'm like, "Oh, I probably shouldn't have just laughed."
Yeah. Right, I know, I catch myself doing it too, and I'm like and I don't I just know I do it sometimes, like, I laugh at inappropriate times, but now I'm gonna be a lot more mindful of it after you mention that to see if I'm doing it to make light of it in that way.
And it's not just making light of it for others, you're making light of it for yourself too. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I minimize my trauma all the time, and I was taught to do that by my mom, but I have done it my whole life also as a protective
Yeah.
manner because if I just sat with the heaviness of what's happened to me, I don't know that I could handle that, and that's something I'm working through, being able to sit with that, the heaviness. So I minimize it all the time.
Yeah.
So, kind of talk through like the therapeutic process of how you identify these parts. Some of the benefits of IFS therapy, you start to develop more of a self leadership. So, operating from that self, that curious, that calm, compassionate self, having these relationships with your different parts, it also helps you to heal the trauma by addressing the root causes. So each time you connect with a different part, you get to the root of when they started protecting you or showing up for you and why they started in understanding where the root came from so that when that pops up, like I used to be so dysregulated with my anger. Like I would get I would get angry with myself for having anger
Mhm.
because it was something I did not want to have as a trait, and I had to really get to the root of where my anger came from and develop this relationship with it and understand that it's showing up to protect me. It's been that was a beautiful realization. And there's times I'm just driving down the road and having this inner dialogue and coming to realizations that I wasn't able to come to before.
I just ordered both of those books that you suggested. I'm
Yay.
excited.
They're
I'm
awesome.
gonna read the one to
Uh,
my kids, the illustrated one.
yeah, it's really
Mhm.
good. It breaks it down so nicely. The other thing it really helps you with is just emotional regulation, right? So these parts typically are different emotions that we experience. And once you can start to recognize them first, so it does help you to just recognize what emotion am I feeling right now? And then you build this relationship with them. So you know what they're trying to do. And then you build trust with these parts of you. So you can ask them to, step back and let yourself take control of the situation and you become much less reactive to people.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that I've gotten to a place, like, I love noticing moments where somebody does some dumb shit, and I just laugh at it now, like, it's not even a reactive, like, thing where it makes me angry, but I notice every time, like, "Ooh, the old me, that would've just pissed me off." I would've
Oh,
wanted to, like,
yeah.
tell them, how I feel now. It's just like, it's like poof. It just goes.
That's awesome. The illustrated book gives a daily self reflection that you can do. So, this is something you can probably do after you've developed a relationship and kind of identified some of your parts. But it suggests to just daily kind of sit quietly, welcome all your parts that wish to come to a safe, neutral meeting place, and then ask your parts, what do you want to let me know about your worries or fears? So, giving that opportunity for them to speak their minds and then sending a message to them that they're not alone, that you're here, you're going to handle it, and you're going to take care of everything. Which I haven't done this, but I think I want to start trying. I think
Mhm.
it would help tremendously. I didn't mention in our last episode, but the way I found my therapist is through Psychology Today. They have a great resource of you can put, your zip code where you live, and then they have all these different lists of different types of therapy, and you can search by therapists that are trained in those. You can also search if you would prefer a male or a female therapist. Some people do have a preference. If you prefer them to be religious or not religious, things like that. So that it has a really great index of different therapists. So if you're looking for someone that specializes in these things, that's really helpful. I will say that IFS is very different than like cognitive behavioral therapy. It is technically considered a talk therapy, but I love it because it integrates more of like a meditation, a guided meditation into it. Like I think I've said before in previous episodes, this was the first time I've ever like laid on a therapist's couch and closed my eyes.
Mhm. Yeah, that's how EMDR is too. I love that. There was
Mhm.
something that, and maybe you just haven't mentioned it yet, but I know somebody that used to do this therapy. Well, somebody through somebody, and he mentioned, I was talking to him the other day, and he mentioned, oh, no one's supposed to knock you off your square. Is that a thing? And
I've
then
never heard of
I
that.
also read when I was doing my research that maybe it was just a coincidence. They read, you're not supposed to you're supposed to get to a place to not allow, because like you said, the goal is like to be able to see through your eyes, to come to like you know, yourself, like get to your core
Mhm.
self. And your parts, the different parts of you knock you off that square. And I just thought it was a
Oh, okay.
good, I don't know. I heard it twice, so I was just curious if you have heard that as well.
Yeah, I mean, my therapist has never used that terminology, but that makes sense. Like having maybe you visualize the square of yourself and not getting knocked off of that by your different parts. That's a good way to visualize it.
Yeah. And since the other day, I've been thinking about that when my friend said that about their significant other that has done the parts therapy.
Okay.
So yeah, anyways, yeah, I'm not gonna allow anybody to knock me off my square.
I'm trying to see there was some other I'm trying to look through this book. There were some things that I don't know if I missed any of the resources. But maybe I didn't. I think I talked about all of them. Yeah. Was there anything else that you found in your research?
Not so much. Was there d Have you ever heard of, because I don't know, I just came across something that you're supposed to, like, through this type of therapy, you're supposed to be able to integrate, like, your exiles and turn them into, like, your allies. I just thought that was.
Yeah, you want it actually talks about integrating all of your parts. So,
Mhm.
building a relationship with all your parts, really getting to the root of their concerns and what their motives are. And like I said before, you're not getting rid of these parts. You're not going to, oh, I'm never going to have anxiety again, or I'm never going to be angry again. That's not the point of it. It's the point of becoming aware of them, building a trusting relationship, and being able to operate from self instead of from those parts.
I love it.
I do too.
I'm excited for
Hopefully
my
you
parts.
all Yes. Hopefully y'all will consider it. And there's also YouTube video with like a guided meditation to walk you through identifying parts. So you might find those helpful as well if you can't get to a therapist.
I love all the resources that are out there.
So many, and so many free resources too. So,
Mhm.
like we always say, uh, you might not have the ability to pay for therapy, and there's a lot of resources out there for you. All
Yes.
right. Well, thank you all for listening this week. We hope you gained some valuable insight. If you haven't already, follow us wherever you get your podcasts, share it with someone you love so we can grow our audience and our community.
You can also catch us on YouTube. Namaste.
Namaste.